Hey friends, Jonathan Neal Fitness here, and welcome to another installation of Yoga 101, where we like to cover a lot of just some of the basic poses, basic stuff about yoga to make sure that you're doing it in a way that's going to be healthy and helpful and not going to be harmful. Today we're going to cover what is, anyone that's been to my class or anyone that's talked to me for a while about yoga knows it is probably my biggest pet peeve in the yoga asana practice and the way that we do these physical posturings. And of course, I'm talking about a little thing called Cobra Pose, or in Sanskrit, we call it Bhujangasana. Now, the main reason that I have such a pet peeve about this is I see millions of students in all the different kinds of classes, all the people everywhere on the Instagrams and everywhere doing this pose in a way that is going to, at least long term, if not immediately, cause some pretty bad things to happen to your body, especially around the lumbar and around the cervical spine. We're going to get into why that is, but most importantly, we're going to get into how you can clean this up, how you can make your Cobra Pose, again, healthy and helpful instead of just something that maybe looks cool but is actually harming you. Because our practice of yoga is, of course, in part something of self-care. So we want to be taking good care of ourselves, not hurting ourselves. So let's get right into it. So let's examine a little bit about what is Cobra Pose. So when we start Cobra Pose, we're going to be really focusing today just on low Cobra, or we might call baby Cobra, but for me, it's actually, for most people, a much better idea to be using this Cobra than to be ever going really high, and we'll get into why that is. Now, the main normal Cobra, you'll see people doing something like this. Now, this is not good for you. There's a lot of compression happening up here at the neck, at the cervical spine, particularly on the posterior side, on the back. You can see it. If you pay attention while you're doing the pose, you'll feel it. The other thing that happens is as that arches, the sternum, the ribs start to go down actually, which is kind of the opposite of what we want in an actual heart opener yoga pose. But worse than that is that starts to lead into a lot of compression down at the lumbar spine. And I see that all the time, especially, again, as people go higher in their Cobra, you'll see this happening, which I don't want to do it because it doesn't really feel good. It's not good for me, but I'll do it for you guys. If I push back, look at my lower back right now. I am compressing those lower back discs on top of each other. The front side of the belly is probably plopping out, causing a lot of compression. I'm going to stop because that does not feel good. I don't know how people manage to get away with it for so long. But essentially, what we actually want in a Cobra Pose is a couple things. Like we said, it is a heart opener. The ribs, the chest should get bigger. And more importantly, even than that, the spine should get longer. It's not about folding the spine or bending it back. That's the whole problem that we have. We're obsessed with making the pose look like Instagram. But the real thing is, if you really want your practice to be healthy, I'll say, and not just be a show off, you need to be establishing length through your spine. You need to be decompressing the compressed space between your vertebrae. Because every day, gravity is pushing straight down on your spine, especially at the lumbar. As we sit in our chairs, all this happens. The poor lumbar and cervical get crushed. So if I'm coming into yoga and I'm doing this kind of thing in my Cobras, I am crushing those even more, which means that we're just taking the damage we've done at the office and exacerbating it on our yoga mat. What we want is to be stretching and opening and creating space between those vertebrae so that we're countering the damaging effect of that gravity over life. So how are we going to do that? How are we going to clean that up? Because that is a mess and we don't want to do that. And you don't want to hurt your back. I'm guessing if you do, this is the wrong video for you. But if you want to have a nice healthy back, I want to show you how to make your Cobra Pose not only not hurt you, but actually help you to establish that. So before we go into the Cobra, I want to just cover a basic principle, which we're going to cover from the tabletop position right here, which is there's many actions that your pelvis can do, but for the sake of this, we're going to be talking about two different actions that your pelvis can do. One is what we call an anterior tilt. That's where I do this. Anterior tilt is kind of nerdy, so I like to call it the happy cat. Like a happy cat tail, I got my tail up. The other thing that we can do is what we call a posterior tilt, which, as you might imagine, is the opposite direction. It goes this way. I like to call it the sad puppy. So we got sad puppy, we've got happy cat. Now, if you notice what happens when I go into happy cat here, you see, again, if you look at that lumbar, watch what happens. It is getting shorter and shorter and more compressed. So if I'm doing a lot of arch at the lumbar, then I am not only getting compression there, but I'm really, it's going to pull the whole spine into compression, the neck as well. Now, if I do a posterior tilt, a couple things happen. You'll see that the lumbar area, instead of being crushed, is now lengthening. I can lengthen through that lumbar. The other thing that you'll see happen is, if you watch at my tummy here, the core comes in. The abdominals, specifically the transverse abdominis, very key, if not the most key muscle in your body, starts to get some activation there. Now, you can activate your transverse from this arch position, but that would take a lot more muscle control, and it doesn't, again, you're still getting some compression through the lumbar. We want to extend, we want to decompress, we want to undo the damage we've done in our day-to-day lives, sitting in those chairs and cars and whatnot. So very important to know the difference. We do not, when we do a Cobra, want to be anterior tilting. That's going to create a lot of arch and compression at the lumbar. Again, we want actually to be at least attempting to posterior tilt so that we lengthen the lumbar and get that intra-abdominal pressure, that inner abdominal engagement. So let's bring it down to the actual Bhujangasana, our Cobra pose here. So first things first, when you arrive in your Cobra, take a moment to wiggle. If you feel, and if you pay attention, you will feel that there will likely be compression or some odd feelings down there in the lower lumbar spine. So sometimes we just got to do a little wiggle to make sure that we're settled in evenly, because a lot of times we're just twisted a little bit. But then once we're there, instead of trying to get high and crushing your lumbar so that it looks cool on the gram, we are going to stay low, lift the chest a little so we get a little extension. Really what we want our arch to be happening is that what we call the thoracic spine, from the shoulder blades, from the middle back here. So the arch is okay, we just don't want it to be done at the lumbar so much. So I'm using my shoulder blades, in a sense, are pushing the sternum forward and up. You can think about your sternum, your breastbone pulling up, but at the same time, we do not want this because this pushes the ribs down. So as I lift my sternum, I'm going to also tuck my chin. And watch what happens to the shoulders as I do that. Now my shoulders are pulling back. I'm getting engagement through the middle back, which is a much better idea than getting compression through the lumbar, because now you're using strong muscles instead of crushing discs. The other thing, again, at the shoulders, as I bring in the chin, you will notice that the shoulders stop doing this. This is what we call internal rotation of the shoulders or of the humerus. That is another bad idea, especially when you're putting a bunch of weight and trying to come up high. So, sternum is up, chin pulls in. Not only is this getting that middle back engagement, but I'm also keeping the neck nice and open and not crushing my cervical. What a great bonus. Now, while we're doing that, again, now I still, even with that, feel some compression at the lumbar. So what we're going to do to get rid of that is I'm just going to engage that posterior tilt. You will probably see that the glutes engage, and again, the lumbar gets longer. Now, this might mean that I can't come quite as high as I would like to for that photo shoot, but it also means that my spine will work well for at least a lot longer than it would if I kept compressing it. So let's go over that checklist. From the ground, I'm going to feel the sternum, that's your breastbone, sliding up towards my chin, lifting off the ground a bit. I'm then going to bring the chin in towards that sternum, but make sure the sternum stays up. I'm then going to kind of bring those shoulder blades a little bit down this back so that I can feel a little extra engagement in that middle back, which is the key area we're trying to feel work here in our Cobra pose. And then I'm going to institute a little bit of that posterior tilt, or that sad puppy at the pelvis. Now what you'll feel is that when I'm here, if I'm in the right place, I'm now feeling the middle back, the glutes, and again, I actually feel some pressure, or some engagement rather, that intra-abdominal pressure at the lower abdominals. So that's what we actually want in a Cobra. Because if I'm just doing this, I am causing nothing but harm. This is not helping in any way whatsoever. So you're much better staying low and finding, again, essentially what we're trying to do is take your spine from being all crinkled in and lengthen it. So sternum up, chin in, tail tucks, we feel the glutes, we feel the abdominals. In a proper Cobra, you will feel the lower abdominals drawing in with strength. You will feel the glutes activating to keep that lumbar long, and you will feel the middle back activating to keep the sternum up, because this, in essence, of course, is just good posture. I don't want to be here in my Cobra. I want to be up, in, long, and tall so that I get my nice alignment. So this is, again, one of my biggest pet peeves, and that's why I wanted to shoot this video as first really in this series, because this pose, like any other pose, or really like any tool, anything we use, has a lot of power and a lot of potency to it. And if we use it correctly, it can really, really help bring strength to those areas, bring length to the other areas that need them. However, like any powerful tool, like a power saw or power drill, if we use it incorrectly, we can cause a whole lot of harm and damage. So please take this to heart. Please watch this video. If you have to watch it a couple times, practice these things. Don't let this fall by the wayside. Every time we move into these poses, every time we flow through them, we are teaching our body how to pattern, where to hold tension. And if every time you do Cobra, you're patterning this, it will harm you over the long time. There's no doubt about that. You will continue to get more crinkled at these areas. It will cause trouble. So set aside trying to get into the next level of pose and focus on getting the right pose, the actual feeling of spinal decompression, core, glute, middle back strength that we actually need. So this has been Jonathan Neal Fitness, Yoga 101. We covered Cobra Pose, also known as Bhujangasana. I hope you can take this information, put it into practice, take the time to make it work, because it not only will change your yoga practice, but it will positively change your body. So thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day. Practice safe, practice smart, and take care.